everybody, and welcome to this edition of BQ Prime Brandsmiths, which are conversations at the intersection of business, marketing, and technology. Our guest on this episode is one of the finest CMOs to come out of India. And today, KP Unnikrishnan is Chief Marketing Officer at Cybersecurity leader Palo Alto Networks globally. KP Unnikrishnan, or better known as Unni to his vast league of fans, friends, etc., has a proven track record of helping organizations envision their marketing strategy and develop an economic business case. He has spent over a decade at Palo Alto, and earlier he was at Brocade Communications as Director of Marketing for Asia Pacific. And before that, he was with Sun Microsystems as Regional Marketing Director for Emerging Markets, where he headed the marketing portfolio for over 140 countries in the emerging market region. In fact, Unni and me go a very long way back. In fact, I think before that, Unni, we met when you were at Parametric. And, I was just thinking about it today. I think that's perhaps 25 years now. So it's been a long, long time I've known you. You've been a friend, you've been a guide. And again, you've been somebody who's seen marketing evolve. And therefore, I think we're going to have a really insightful time today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Ivor, thank you very much, and thank you for the very kind, acknowledgements. And you're right. I mean, time is 25 years feels like a long time, but it's almost like yesterday I met you at PTC in one of the press meetings, and I think I have to give you the same kudos. You're one of the journalists that I've known who knows technology, who knows people, who knows business, and who's got the ability to bring all of these things together, which is very important for readers or viewers. So kudos to you and congratulations for all the big things that you have been doing.
Well, thank you, Unni, for those kind words. Now, coming to BQ Prime Brandsmiths, like I said, these are conversations at the intersection of marketing, business, and technology. But one thing, as we begin, one thing we can't do away with is the pandemic. That is it's become a milestone now, right? And things have completely changed. We've just spoken about how perhaps, 5 years back, if we had done this from homes, our backgrounds wouldn't have been quite so good. They would have been slightly perhaps unprofessional. But today we have professional lighting at home and all that. Now, in the domain of marketing, how has marketing, in your opinion, evolved post the pandemic?
Very good question, Ivor. And if you really look back over the last couple of years, I think there's been a radical shift in all forms of business in the way the pandemic has impacted them. Some for good, some for bad, because things have, if you've not had the right business models, you've not had the far side, if you've not transformed yourself, they've had a tough time. And that applies to all functions. But if I look back at marketing, I think a couple of key things that may have made a big difference to marketers and organizations are as follows. The first most important thing is, I think the digital dominance that's come into play has been a critical component of how organizations are beginning to reach out to their customers or their prospects, because it doesn't need to be that, hey, I'm physically in front of you. It's also given organizations an ability to, hey, how do you communicate, sell, market to a consumer who is sitting within a small screen because you don't have the ability to reach out to the customer. The second important thing which a lot of organizations evolved was, hey, I'm not able to go in front of the customer and able to collect the purchase order, or a partner to go in front of the customer. How do you get your e-commerce engines in place? How do you get your processes, your tools in place by which customers are able to, one, get marketed to and sell, but also secondly, have the ability to buy from you, and you have a process to be able to send that across. I think the third key thing for us, which we are still living in that world, is the process by which you are able to work and by which you are able to run events virtually. It's a hybrid world. Gone are the days where you have to come for my event, or I will market to you in a particular way and take it or leave it. Today, all the more, not that the consumer did not have that dominance, but all the more the dominance is coming, because they need to be marketed to in their comfortable environment. So as marketers, we need to be understanding, how do you cater to them in a virtual world? How do you cater to them in terms of when they are working in a remote manner? And if I want to listen to your recording with me, It's not that BQ Prime will say you've got to log in at 9:30 a.m. India Standard Time, and that's the only time you will listen to Palo Alto Networks and BQ. I should have the luxury to say that, hey, I want to, one, be able to watch it as a podcast. Two, maybe watch it on a video or a phone. And three, maybe watch it on a Sunday, right? How do you cater to that? I think the fourth area would be really around elevating your content and thought leadership. Because again, you've got to grab your prospect at that given point of time. You don't have the luxury. It's almost like a digital version of an elevator pitch where you've got to reach out to the prospect, make an impact through the right messaging, etc., to be able to capture him or her in their buyer's journey. Other key thing that I've also evolved over the last couple of years, I would strongly say, is the focus around personalization and customization. Because again, that's so critical that I cannot be bombarding you with messages that I'm giving maybe another region, another country, another persona. So how do you kind of weave that in the way you reach out to the customers? And maybe the last part I would really say is, AI and automation that is coming into play, because you cannot be catering to your customers and your audience in a very manual manner. It's about how do you get the right tools, how do you get the right predictive analysis, all of those things to really help you. So I would say, to summarize, our marketing has evolved over the last couple of years, and pandemic has accelerated it. But having said that, it also has put a clear differentiator on organizations where they look at marketing as a business driver, and they're constantly transforming marketing or evolving marketing with the changing time and need, because the way you used to market 5 years back to the way you used to market 10 years back is not going to be the way you're going to market the next 5 to 10 years. So you've got to constantly evolve and change. And I would say the pandemic has really accelerated some of those changes.
True, it's been a completely new world, as it were. I want to get into some of those aspects, AI, personalization, etc. But before that, I wanted to go a step slightly back into your own career. I want to look at you as a person, what you've done, and I want to ask you, how different is leading marketing for a security business? Because in some ways, marketing servers, etc., is selling products. Now, certainly not. It's not the same as selling soap, but it's still selling a product, selling something that gives you a certain benefit if you use it. But cybersecurity is often a concept sell, and you often see it work best when things go wrong, and you never really want it to go wrong. So actually, to move mind shift. So in your opinion, and now you spent, I think, maybe more than a decade in this domain, how different do you see this?
I think the fundamental thing still stays the same, Ivor, when it comes to marketing. It's about providing value to the customer, right? And that really doesn't change whatever you're trying to market, because if the customer doesn't see value, whether it's cybersecurity products or soaps or whatever you want to call it, they're not going to buy from you. You're never going to create the brand and the awareness and eventually the lead generation. However, you touched upon a good point. There are a couple of key things that are, I would say, a little bit more critical when it comes to cybersecurity. The first and the most important thing, it's about trust and credibility, not to just yourself, but even for the customer, right? Because we are safeguarding them. So everything that we do, right from our technology, the innovation that we bring in, the way we sell, the support that we provide, the marketing that we do, it's about building the trust. It's not about ambulance chasing. It's not about scaring a customer about, hey, you know what, these kind of attacks and breaches will happen. What are you going to do? Flip it over. These kind of attacks and breaches are going to happen. What can we do to help you to support it? Technology has evolved so much, whether you're talking about, it's not about just using a computer anymore. It's about different technologies that you're going to be using to benefit. And the way we see that is it's really going to enhance your competitiveness, your efficiency, your productivity. It's going to give you access to newer markets, newer tools. All of these things are coming because technology is playing such a strong role in a company's growth trajectory. And what we want to do is encourage those customers to look at all of these things, but partner with somebody who's able to provide them with the right security features. The second key area when it comes to marketing is a lot around education, because it's a little bit of a fear mongering that happens in the industry. But it's really about going back to my earlier point. Technology is great. It's going to benefit you in every aspect of what you're doing. If you're moving towards the cloud, if you're expanding with a global mobile workforce, if you're going to make your people remote and getting them to work without coming to the office, this is all good in its own specific way. But do you have the right security to be able to make that happen? So again, how do you create that education and the awareness? It's also ties back to your target personas. And it's very similar in some cases, but here I would say the way you would market to the board, to a C-suite, maybe even a CEO, down to a practitioner, to a DevOps SecOps audience is all very different. So there's that additional focus and investment that we have to put to make sure, these target personas are marketed in the right way. And I think that is a big differentiator, especially in this industry. Technology and innovation is a key component, not only in terms of the innovation that we do with our products, but how do you make customers aware about it? Because if we are in the forefront of innovation with cybersecurity, how do you make sure customers know about that? And secondly, have the ability to use it so that that's helping them safeguard better. And then, the best thing that works in this industry is really about best practices, user case studies, getting customers to understand that, hey, I've had this big, strong, digital transformation that I've embarked on in this company. What are the use cases of organizations who've done the same story and stayed secure, right? How are they put in the guardrails to really help while they were going through this digital transformation? And again, how do you market to these kind of audience and to help them? And then last but not least, but again, this applies to a lot of the other organizations, but from cybersecurity, we put that additional focus. It's not about just the whole CSR initiative, which we have been investing heavily, but it's about how are you giving back to the community? Today, if you look at the weakest links or your most vulnerable links, it's youngsters who are accessing, digital tools without thinking about their own safety. So there's a lot of effort that we're putting in to educate children at that age to get them to understand why they need to be more secure when you're on cybersecurity. So, when you're getting onto technology, or our investments into universities, or our investments will be elderly, with parents living alone and their children living in another part of the world and their access to their grandchildren. Today, elderly are accessing tools without knowing the right level of safety and security associated with it. So there are programs that we run to get them to be aware about it, so that tomorrow when they get an alert on their phone, they're not going to click on it and get into a phishing attack or something of that sort. And how are you going to be secure? So I think it's a combination of all of those things which really differentiate and make it more important on how we market when it comes to cybersecurity.
Fascinating, Uni. I think you've covered so many aspects here, but I think the key is really, I think, the point you made about trust, really. Another aspect of how marketing has changed is that, maybe a couple of decades back, marketing was primarily just advertising and print or outdoor as you saw it. Then, of course, a TV came, etc. But it was still advertising to a large role that, TV spots in between. But today, content has come front and center. And I wanted to ask you how you see the role of content and storytelling in marketing, especially because, traditional ads may not work as effectively anymore. And I remember even from your perspective, Palo Alto, I remember many years ago, you all had commissioned a web series on cybersecurity. And I know today, post-pandemic, most technology companies, or even most companies, have digital presences. Some of them even have almost like in-house over-the-top platforms, so they do a lot of it. But you all were really the first to do it, and I think you were behind it. So can you tell us a little bit more about the role of content and storytelling in this context?
I think the fundamental about marketing starts with storytelling. That's really it. It's about getting your consumer, your customers to understand who you are, what's the value that you bring in, what's the outcome that you are able to deliver. And all of those things can only happen through storytelling. And who better can do that as a marketer? And hence, I think it also puts that additional level of pressure. And it happens a little bit more when you're in a technology company, because sometimes the good and the bad part about being a technology company is it's nuts and bolts that keep on coming out, because you're so intimate with the technology, your automatic tendencies to talk about product features and nuts and bolts of the product. So how do you kind of take all that and turn it around? And I think the critical component of storytelling or content is, one, is how do you make it educative, right? Because it needs to be interesting. How does the customer or the consumer understand the value that you're bringing in through the story angle? And educative and informative. The other critical thing, as you rightly said, is what does the brand story talk about? So when you're again in front of the customer, it's about him or her understanding what do you stand for and what is it that your story is, right? From, its inception to the kind of culture that you built in, to the technology that you brought out, to the customer values, to the customer benefits. And then you go drill down into your technology and your solution. And we again weave it back to this is how you're building your infrastructure and your technology in your business. What can we do to kind of partner with you and help in that way? So it's really about a joint partnership story that comes into place. This is again important because when you expand that, it's really about SEO and visibility coming in, right? How do you kind of take all of these things, put it onto the digital, put it onto the net, and make sure that somebody else who's thinking on the same lines, either does a search or gets fed in by information where he or she resonates with something that we would have done partnering with another organization. Really about tying into that. There would also be components about a customer journey coming in, right? This is where the customer started off. How did we partner with the customer? How did the customer grow their business? If I look at some of the things that we've done at Palo Alto Networks, we started off as a next generation firewall company. We were founded 17 years back. And over the last couple of years, we've transformed ourselves to be a leader in the cybersecurity space. And how do you reach there if you're not able to have or articulate that message to the customer? Because the customer's mindset would have been, here's a firewall company, right? But when you go to them and say, hey, listen, as your organization evolves, as you're expanding your business, as you're going through a digital or a cloud journey, how do we partner with you to grow with you so that tomorrow, everything from your cloud to your expansion into new markets, to your acquisition of a new company, et cetera, how is it that we can partner with you from a security standpoint? And it's really about building the trust, because it ties back to the organization really understanding and seeing value of what or who you are to be able to partner with you onto the larger part of their business. And last but not least, when you look at content and storytelling, I think where a lot of marketers struggle is the channels that they use. And I think what is important for marketers to realize is it needs to be across the board, because it needs to be a connected journey. So if a consumer or a prospective customer is looking at you on a mobile phone, to attending an event, to hearing something in the news, to getting a digital component, attending a webinar, how's the journey tying together and resonating with the same story is going to be critical. And I think this is what organizations will want to hear and see from you. And this is what you as a marketer will need to build.
I think that was very eloquently explained, Uni. when you brought in this entire thing of how do you really look at storytelling. Another aspect of this is how do you really measure marketing effectiveness now, especially with things like storytelling. So can you tell us a little bit about how you do it, how you think marketers should better do it?
I think well, it's not what I think. This is what how every marketer should think. It's how are they bringing value to the business? Okay. And it is for organizations to understand that there's tremendous value that marketing brings in. And I've been pretty fortunate to work in organizations where they have seen tremendous value on the kind of impact the business driving, the kind of value that marketing is able to bring in to the business. And it could be across the board on different parameters. Now, every organization will have their own way of measuring it. And what I would highlight is there should be. Now, it could vary depending on how organizations look at it. It could be customer value that, hey, you have invested, the customers bought from you, but how have you built your brand, your value to that organization by which they continue to buy from you? We use something called customer life cycle, LTV, a lifetime value, and this is a good parameter which tells us on how this customer continues to invest and grow with us, and which is again very important. Customer acquisition costs. If you're a growing company, how are you investing in marketing by which you're getting access to net new prospects and customers? And what's the cost that's taken into account? How much are you investing? What's the return that's coming out of it? How does that help you in terms of the growth parameter? There are obviously a lot of technology tools that are today available that helps to drive marketing attribution. And my only ask on that would be marketing attribution needs to be measured in such a way so that your stakeholder understands it in a very simple word. If you're going to go into paragraphs trying to explain how marketing tried to influence pipeline or marketing tried to influence a deal and your sales stakeholder doesn't get it, you fail. So you got to look at it in a model by which you're able to help customers, your sales team understand that the value brought in. Then there could be areas around brand awareness and perception. This is how you started off. You run a whole bunch of marketing initiatives, brand awareness campaigns, and then maybe a year down the line, you would then go back and measure, has the customer's assumption of who you are or what you provide change? And again, these are great tools that we have. Conversion rates would be again yet another way, because again, it tells you, have you driven the right initiative by which the customer or the prospect connects with what you need and has connected with you? But again, those are more tactical, like you've got the click-through rates, you've got the A/B testing, all of those things. But what I would really highlight is, and it's up to the marketer to have that strong conversation with his or her business partner and say, what would you define as success for marketing? And you need to make that very clear right at the beginning, and it needs to have a number value associated. That's where I would come from.
That leads me to my next question, which is actually related to marketing effectiveness. Is that, back in the day, brand campaigns really where it was. And again, I'm not just talking from a marketing perspective, but even we come from a publishing background. We never really knew performance campaigns, right? Perhaps to some extent, it was started by companies like Dell, wherein they would put a code in the newspaper ad, and you called up and said, this was the code, and they measured, well, the reader saw it in this ad, etc. But today, of course, things have completely changed. Today, even publishers like us, we work on campaigns that include a lead or a performance angle. So in your mind, Unni, is there any dilemma today in brand campaign versus performance campaign? And how should really marketers go? Is everything about performance and leads? Is there absolutely no room for perhaps brand campaigns today? Because sometimes that is often what we hear from CMOs who tell us that everything is about leads today.
As a marketer, I would say put a business hat first. Okay. And the question is, what do you want to achieve? What is your outcome? It starts with that. Now, a well-planned out marketing strategy will need to have both. Because what are we trying to achieve, right? If you look at a brand campaign, what is the objective? It's slightly a long-term value. Your immediate measurables may not be directly there. Content and messaging would play a very critical component. You could look at how budget plays a key part into the whole thing, and that's where your whole brand campaign comes in. Performance campaigns are slightly different, as you would agree. Your objectives are different because it's really about targeted surgical clinical kind of an approach. It's a shorter time frame where, yes, as you rightly said, it's all about getting the leads coming in. It's about the right metric that you want to look at. It is short term, as I highlighted, and I think the very important component over here is, again, these are more campaign targeted, quick, short, outcome related. And when I say short, it would vary depending, obviously, the business outcome. And both have their own standing as an organization. I wouldn't put it as a dilemma because it maps back to your strategy. You would have an overarching brand campaign, and there could be performance campaigns that sit under it, right? It's not about the dilemma because, again, it ties back to what do you want to achieve, right? Now, you may come back and say, I want to park my brand campaign. I want to focus on getting some great leads going and pump it up. We've got to understand that, yes, that'll help you in the short term, but if you've not invested with brand, if you don't have an all-encompassing and a powerful brand, you that window is going to run out. And you got to look at how you got to juggle both of these things together. And I wouldn't call it a dilemma. I would map it back to how you build a solid, marketing strategy that resonates with an overarching brand campaign, and which will have a couple of other components, and a campaign component could be associated with that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think that was very, very clear. You spoke about personalization, right? And one of the things that really helps with personalization today is the role of artificial intelligence, especially now with some of the new tools that are coming in, right? Chat GPT, etc. So how do you see the increasing role of AI in marketing and in building a personalized customer experience? And what are some of the things that you are doing, especially with tools such as Gen AI, which are very, very accessible to almost everybody? They're no longer just in the domain of technology leaders.
So there are a couple of things the way I look at AI. The first and the foremost thing is there is a lot of, you would accept it. Let me take a step back. On an average, you'll get 5 to 10 emails coming to you talking about some AI piece that's going on. So it's kind of getting into a mode where every Tom, Dick, and Harry is getting into an AI component, right? And then there is also that little bit of a fear about, oh gosh, AI is going to take away my job. What am I going to do? Blah, blah, blah. I think what's going to be important is, and we use that terminology, AI may not be taking away your job, but not knowing AI could definitely take away your job. Okay. And I think in marketing, there are so many different advantages that we can take into account. As you rightly said, there's so many tools that's coming in. A lot of the existing vendors are building a lot of AI features. And then if I look at some of the immediate things that come to my mind, it's really around data analytics and insights, right? The kind of power you're going to be getting in your hand with, insights and analysis about your marketing campaign, your customers' buying behavior, your personas, et cetera, it's going to be very, very powerful and effective. And I think we need to be tapping into that. The second important thing, once upon a time, your content personalization would happen very, very manually. As your personas expand, as your markets expand, as your cultural portions, your aspects of getting into more and more diverse markets expand, this is not going to be done by human beings. Again, how do you tap into tools? How do you tap into AI to really help you in terms of driving a lot of the personalization piece? Chatbots, virtual assistants are pretty much there, and a lot of companies are already beginning to use that. The way you do email marketing, the way you run your tests in terms of the responses, your click-throughs, how do you evolve? Okay, this is my first campaign. This is the response I've got. This has worked. This hasn't worked. How do you change that? How do you evolve that? Again, would be a critical component. How does this tie in back to your search engine, right? Again, when customers or prospects are searching for specific keywords, buzzwords, technology, products that they need to buy, again, there are tools by which you're able to get in front of those audiences and customers. Mapping social media, again, the way you use tech tools to understand customer, prospect listening, understand what's going to happen from a buying pattern standpoint. How do you veer your messages to kind of make that happen? Again, would be a lot of those areas. Personalization on the web, right? Gone are the days your website is going to be one monolithic site, which, every Tom, Dick, and Harry who would be going there kind of gets the same look and feel. How do you personalize it? How do you make sure that when your prospects on the web looking at his or her searching pattern or surfing pattern, how do you feed them with the data? How do you get more of conversation going with those people? Mapping customer journeys would again be another critical component of using AI tools to really help put those together. And last but not the least, I would say marketing automation is a big investment that organizations have continued to do. We as marketers need to go back to our existing MarTech vendors and say, how are you using AI? How am I going to get benefit out of it? Because if you're not going to be using it, somebody else could be. How do I manage that? The last and the most important thing that I will highlight as a cybersecurity professional is how does this map in to your security? Because you don't want to be going and bringing tools from outside, which gets into a situation where your security, your organization's security is put up at risk, and you got to think about it that way.
Yeah, I think that the last part is especially important. I think as everybody today goes, I mean, I see so many press releases, even in our headlines today. I see that maybe 5 out of 10 headlines are about Gen AI, because everybody is talking about what they're doing. Everybody's added Gen AI to their product, and everybody's got a Gen AI strategy, Gen AI research. How many people are using Gen AI, etc. Another aspect that I want to talk about, Uni, is really account-based marketing, right? And today, account-based marketing is really come of age. It is front and center for many companies. But I think for you especially, whether unconsciously or not, whether using this term or not, you've been doing it for a very long time, right? Because at companies like, whether it was Parametric, whether it was Sun, Brocade, etc., these are not companies that went mass. These are companies that went to specific accounts, and especially large accounts. So how do you really see this entire trend evolve, as it were?
You're absolutely right. ABM is not something that has never been there. It's been there for many years. And I was doing some research, and I've got some comments or pointers that I made over here. You have organizations pre-2000 who are already early adopters. Now, obviously, what was it called at that time? Could be ABM, may not have been ABM. And today, to where it is today, it has definitely evolved, because again, I go back to the importance of us as marketers. It doesn't matter whether you're talking to a consumer / a persona. The same level of customization you need to do with that persona is what you will need to do with an organization. Okay, so that's where this whole customization of ABM comes in. And I think in the pre-2000, I would call it was more like a pre-digital era, where there's a lot of physical and manual initiatives that were put into place to cater to a specific set of accounts, to get them to think more and more customized manner in the way organizations would help them. I think the digital transformation post 2000 made it far easier, because by then you were able to get into your accounts and map those accounts with your persona and help reach out to them in a lot of digital ways. I think even in 2000s is where the various marketing automation tools started coming into play, right? Companies specializing with ABM. And obviously, there have been a lot of companies who invested in that. And the differential I would bring in is ABM should not be just seen as a digital way of reaching out to a prospect. You've got enough of those tools which can make it happen. But the important part of how an ABM initiative can be successful is when you're joined on the hips with the sales team, because otherwise there is no ABM. And I think, while it might sound logical, Ivor, I've heard of stories where many a times sales guys may not even know what's going on in their account because marketing has been running their own initiatives. So the first and foremost is how do you bring them together? What's the kind of technology stack that is available? The alignment I spoke about, it's about the multi-channel part of it, right? If company X sees you at an event, the kind of messaging that they would get. They come back, they get fed something which is very similar and adapting to what the customer wants. You have a sales rep walking in, talks the same language. You get into a possible microsite for the customer where you're feeding the customer the requirements that they have. If you are a great, solid salesperson, you know the account inside out. You're able to feed the marketing team, hey, this company is using X competitive product. The renewal is coming up in the next 3 months. Those 3 months, how do you kind of feed that customer with areas that kind of get the customer to start thinking, hey, you know what? Why don't I go with this specific partner instead of renewing that? So it comprises us of a lot of things. We used to run tactical things like, we call it the security days, where we would walk into an account, spend half a day into account and literally run an event within an account, but for the account. So whether it was the tools that, the product updates that we were giving, the business direction that we were using, the solution conversation that we were doing, each component was catered to that account. And I think the most important part for IBM is how do all of these things come together to make that account feel that, hey, this is not a typical paintbrush approach that we would have used for every other organization, but this is how we are kind of really catering to what this organization needs and their requirement. And this is how this company is coming in to be a partner of choice for that organization.
Well, Unni, on that note, I think I want to thank you for this half an hour or so that you've spent here with us for really taking us through the evolution of marketing. It's been a masterclass in many ways, and discussing so many of these different trends in marketing. I'm sure a lot of marketers across the world will benefit from it. Certainly, most in India who follow this this show. So, thank you so much, Unni. It was a real pleasure, and again, I want to wish you all the best for your massive new global role in Palo Alto, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you very much. I will really appreciate it. Thanks again for the opportunity and the kind words. And I do hope this was a good value to you and the audience. And I'm hoping that we are a marketing community, and this is where we all learn from each other. And as marketers, I always understand and appreciate it's never an easy job. Not the other jobs are not easy, but we go through that continuous, challenge about business, brand, all of those things. And it makes us as marketers always on our toes, trying to be a couple of steps ahead on how we need to change things. So I'm hoping there's value out of this whole thing. And I want to thank you for this opportunity once again.
I'm sure there's tremendous value. Thanks again, Unni. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.